Hello, Long Beach. Welcome to Artist Banter, a podcast focusing on arts and entertainment in Long Beach, brought to you by the Daily 49er staff. My name is Aziza Gomez, and I will be your host today. Well, we have made it to the end of the season and the semester. I have had so much fun with this project and during my time here at CSULB. Like many of you, I have grown so much here through the help of the resources and educators on campus, and it is something that I will cherish for the rest of my life. Before continuing on with the episode, I wanted to share some lessons that I have learned in my time here that I will take with me after graduation. Alright, lesson 1. You do not have to chase anything. You will eventually attract the opportunities you deserve, and what belongs to you will find you. The way we view, think, and feel about our own future can have a bigger effect on our outward existence than we think. So don't live in fear of failure or in fear of missing out on an opportunity, because you will always attract what is meant for you. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. Number 2, find circles and institutions where you will be celebrated, not tolerated. If you have ever been put in a situation where you felt overlooked or underappreciated, you are not alone. Many of us have ended up in relationships or programs where we feel like we are being tolerated and it feels like we will never be celebrated for our work. I encourage all of us to stay authentic and proud to be ourselves. Carry on being yourself and don't worry, because the right people will find you along the way. Well, these are some of the biggest lessons I've learned in life so far, and I hope hearing them can help the graduating class of 2022. If you would like to continue hearing from me after the season, you can follow me on Instagram at ReadySetGomez22. Now on to the interview. For today's Artist Banter grad issue episode, I asked someone who I consider a very accomplished CSULB alum to share their experience and advice for life post-graduation. Andrew Balogh is an American music producer, songwriter, film composer, and saxophonist. He found his passion for music at a young age when he started playing piano and saxophone at 7 years old and began composing classical and jazz scores when he was in high school. Andrew is also a distinguished alum of the Bob Cole Conservatory, where he got his bachelor's degree in jazz studies and composition. Hi, Andrew. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. Very cool to be here with you.
Of course. I've been looking forward to this one.
Me too. I'm glad we got it dialed in and set up.
Yes. Okay, so my first question. So I've heard your story on other occasions, but for the people who are just discovering you, would you like to give us some more backstory on your college experience and your path to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started at Cal State Long Beach quite some time ago as a performance major. Went in there as a saxophone performance major, and then made the switch to jazz studies after my junior recital, which was all classical. Picked up a composition minor along the way, and the goal was always to perform. That was the goal, like write your own music, graduate, go on tour, produce records. The longer I was in the program, the more I, realized like, hey, it's also good to have, other skill sets within music, just because if you are striving to be the next, I'll just throw out some buzz names, Branford Marsalis or Chris Potter, other saxophonists like that. I mean, you have to play at an incredibly high level. And you have to really be willing to go through the process of spending years and years on the road, building your brand, touring extensively, producing records, getting those out there, promoting them, trying to get signed to a jazz label. And you really have to commit to the process for a very long time for most people, right? To really start seeing some, financial success. So I realized that's always something I'm going to pursue. But I'm going to keep my avenues open with whatever possibilities kind of come my way within the space of music, because eventually you need to start making money to pay for stuff, right? Like life is expensive. So, so I always had my mind open while I was there, and graduated and was just freelancing around town, kind of doing anything and everything. Had a couple successes where I had an opportunity to sub in the horn section for a Jay-Z concert. That was really what opened, I think the first big door that actually led to other opportunities. I guess while we're on the topic of other opportunities, I think for anyone that is on the verge of graduating, I think it's really sometimes can be easy to be extremely selective with the work that you take, maybe because it might not A, be exactly musically fulfilling, or B, maybe not compensate you as much as you think you'd like to be compensated, or C, maybe compensate you well, but, maybe not feel like it's going to amount to anything else. Kind of being able to evaluate like, hey, this could lead to something else. You never know who else is going to be on the gig. You never know what door that one thing is going to open or where that's going to take you, I think is a good mindset to have, because a lot of kind of the one-off gigs that I thought wouldn't really amount to anything else actually did later on in life, actually amounting to something that was totally unforeseen. So anyway, that Jay-Z, subbing in the horn section, I mean, that was an incredible opportunity, but that amounted to so much more than just being, a one-time subbing in the horn section gig. Did that, had an opportunity to audition for the band Sublime with Rome, which is the original Sublime with a new lead singer. And that really, took me all over the world, been to 37 countries, met a lot of incredible people. We did double bills with Blink-182, met Travis Barker, have a great connection with him now where we're co-producing some music, and just a ton of other people. So yeah, one thing just kind of led to the next and kind of led to the next. And I guess that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, one fear that I've heard come up when discussing life after graduation is losing focus or derailing. How did you stay focused after college? And even now, you have so many hats within the industry. How do you distribute what you prioritize?
It's a very good question. So I feel like specifically within music, I've always been very self-motivated. Like the responsibility of my parents, like, they were very clear, like, hey, if you want to pursue music, like, go for it, but you're on your own. It's almost kind of like instilling the fear in God, like, okay, hey, man, don't screw up because, there's no one really here to have your back. So fear of becoming stagnant or not, continuing to move forward is always, I think, a good motivator. But I also think like it is very common to get burned out. And I kind of do feel that way now about a lot of things. I feel like I call them like life audits, like an audit of your life at the end of the week or on the weekend. Set aside like a half an hour, like really appropriate a half an hour once a week where you're alone and you could just think. Like you could really just sit and be undistracted and really think and go back and evaluate your week, see where you spent your time. I think having something to always try to strive for and to try to achieve, I think is good because it almost holds you accountable. I think that's good, just outside of music too, like to just hold yourself accountable to whatever people's goals are. So I think for me, like, I realized, okay, so I get out of school, like, so there's no more private lessons. So there's really not, a professor barking at me to get done every week.
Right.
There's no more assignments, right? It's really just like, all right, like start your career, start making money in music. I'd already said, okay, no matter what, I'm going to practice, from this time to this time every day. For composers, I'm going to score, study, and write. Whatever field you're in, isolate something that you feel like you could improve on and really give yourself homework assignments. I think self-motivation is really important because so much of the motivation I feel that comes from the conservatory is no longer there, right? So you could be motivated by some of your other peers who might be playing better than you or writing better than you, or even if you're one of the better players there, you have a professor sort of motivating you. You have juries or recitals to prepare for. Everything is kind of laid out, and the stairway in which you need to climb is right in front of you and you can see it. When you graduate, that all kind of leaves. So I think, staying consistent, if you could afford private lessons, even if it's only twice a month or once a month, setting those like little markers along the path to strive for, I think is important, and getting that set up as soon as possible. So that way you don't kind of, okay, well, I'm going to go on, a vacation this summer and I'm kind of going to, party and unwind after my degree, which not saying that that's bad or anything, but kind of, hey, okay, so come, we graduate in May, June and July maybe, and come August, this is really what I'm shooting for. If graduate school is not in the cards, or if, a DMA is not in the cards, I think really just setting up small goals and big term goals are great. Small goals, something you want to achieve on a weekly basis. Larger goals, maybe a a quarterly basis. So 4 times a year, once every 3 months. And then when you have that life audit, right, an evaluation, you go back and you're honest with yourself. Okay, what did I do good this week? This week I was consistent with my practicing and I'm sounding good, but maybe I dropped the ball on this area. Or, I did great with networking and reaching out to people, but I didn't really keep up with my practicing. I think the more people could get into holding themselves accountable, because there is no one there really policing you. Really, like at the end of the day, the older you get, the more you realize like it's really you against the world, not against the world, but it's you.
Right.
It's you out and about, going
Right.
through life.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. So weekly, I still do it. I mean, just setting the time aside every week to think and reflect, and then strategize. Okay, now how am I going to keep going? I think is good.
Yeah, it's a good way to keep focused. Like, I think that's one of my things right now. It's like I don't have someone that's gonna check in on me every week, being like,
Right.
"Oh, did you
Right.
practice?" And
Totally.
it's with music, like everyone's gonna hear if you practiced or not.
100%.
Such a reflective thing.
I think too, like as we get older, you begin to kind of, not deliberately, but you lose touch with a lot of people that you go to school with, just because life happens, everyone gets busier and everyone's time becomes less and less. There's less time available essentially to be able to, do as much stuff as you'd like to do. So I think, if you are in the college university system now, you have peers and you have friends that are trying to strive to achieve the same thing. So almost having like maybe an accountability partner, someone who you talk to and you play for that person and that person plays for you, or you share compositions they share with you, just someone who you could kind of, like maybe if you're not motivated, maybe you could lean on someone to help you motivate you, or vice versa. I think it's good to have a strong community of people.
Yeah, that's so true. If you can't do it alone, it's fine because you need a support system.
You do. I think it's very important. Yep.
As
Mhm.
someone who wants to get more into composition, I would be curious to know what your first compositions were like. So, like when you were in high school, what were you writing?
Oh,
And
man.
also, if you can share any methods to keep things fun while conditioning your skills.
Well, I wasn't writing anything much impressive in high school. It's pretty bad. Approach wise, if you're just getting your feet wet with writing, I think the first step would just be an arrangement, right? So take anything technical. It could be an arrangement in 3-part harmony for Happy Birthday.
Hmm.
Something simple, like if you really just want to start down that path, you have to take on the responsibility of starting something, right? So, I think my first arrangement was an arrangement of either Happy Birthday or like a Beach Boys song. Um,
Love the Beach Boys.
yeah, me too. Awesome. Arrangement is a good way to start, so identify the key center, identify the chord progressions, so you know what types of harmony you're going to potentially be implementing while you write, and then identify the ensemble. It doesn't even need to be an ensemble. It could just be two melodies on top of one another and seeing how they harmonize together. Just taking that first step, I think, is important. Like with anything, I mean, if I don't really think there's one person who's ever learned how to ride a bike without falling once. At some point, just have to say, hey, I'm going to get on the bike and just try. And you have training wheels. So the training wheels could be, we're just going to do a very simple arrangement and we're only going to do 2-part harmony. And then, gradually you become more comfortable with that. And then you start 3-part harmony. And then maybe you have a counter melodic motif working against the main melody. Or working with it. Yeah, that's the process of how I got started. Baby steps,
Yeah.
And the second part of the question was,
Oh yeah. So how do you keep like songwriting or like score analysis? How do you keep that interesting for yourself? Like, because you've been doing this for a while now, so you
right.
enjoy it. And also, I guess, like, how much of your practicing is actually like enjoyable for you?
um, yeah, I mean, everyone has those days where, like, you don't want to practice, but you know that you have to because it just comes with the territory, right?
Yeah.
For me now, being able to practice my instrument is more of a pleasure than a task, because I don't get to do it as often as I'd like. I'm mostly producing and scoring now, but pretending like I'm tired of practicing, I think, because there were points where I just didn't want to do it just bite the bullet and be willing to make sacrifices, I think, to not only do well in music, but anything in life. And I think you just have to say, like, if it's something I'm not really maybe looking forward to, just get it done with in the morning. I mean, honestly, just it sounds like I sound like a parent right now, but just set the alarm, get up and try to get it done,
Good
and get
idea.
through it.
Front load in the day. Just do
Yeah,
all the heavy stuff first.
do the heavy stuff first. And if you want to break apart your practice routine, you could do that. But I think too, like, no one's going to do it for you, like success and achievement within the space of music, it really comes from self-motivation. I think for me to be able to stay motivated, like just try to implement something into your routine, like something that you're excited about. And that could be something like listening to a new artist or a new musician. That could be listening to maybe scores from composers that you maybe normally wouldn't listen to because it's just different. I mean, sometimes the challenge is the motivation. Sometimes, like, some people will get really motivated by, hey, I don't know anything about this, or I don't really know much about postmodern writing or whatever genre it is. Maybe that's someone who you kind of go back to and try to find inspiration from. So I think as long as you could keep stuff sort of diversified, I think, that helps with the motivation. If you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over, and I'm talking about like doing long tones or scales or stuff like that. I mean, that's obviously important, but I think, whatever you could do to keep it interesting, I think is good. So for me, it's always been listening to different players and listening to different composers, and going through those scores.
That's a good way to stay interested. I mean, I'm excited to graduate and not have to do like pieces that I don't want to, or have to do the same piece. I mean, okay, so my recital is now in like 4 days. So I'm
Nice.
trying my best to stay calm, I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
whatever I sound like right now is what I'm going to sound like. I'm content, whatever.
Yes.
But I had
That
my
is true.
recital rep since the pandemic, like since the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I'm like feeling so fried. So once I'm done, I'm just going to be listening to whatever I want, playing whatever.
Yeah.
Since you're like a producer with a major label, are there any current worthwhile music industry trends that you've noticed and would suggest we do some research on?
I remember when like Billie Eilish first came out with her album, kind of that really sort of dark, minimal production. And I don't mean minimal production as far as significance. I just mean like very stripped down, like not very heavy with like various instruments and plugins and stuff like that. Yeah, there was kind of a phase of that album blew up so much. And I think too, like she blew up just like as a personality and as an entertainer, so that, like for mainstream music, like so much of the impact that it has, it does depend on the music to some degree, but it also, a lot of it has to do with who the artist is, and if they're viral on the internet or viral on TikTok or controversial or not controversial, or that tends to also drive the success, of their music or just the mainstream awareness of it. So yeah, I do think like that was kind of a trend. Right now, I would say like hip hop is definitely very popular now, more than what it was like 10 years ago. It's definitely a huge trend. Like for example, EDM, like 2010 to like 2013, it was like boom, boom, energetic, almost until 2015. And now there's kind of less of that. It's more mid-tempo, stuff like that. So
yeah, I feel you.
That's kind of my take on it right now.
I feel like maybe you want to perform more than you produce, or vice versa.
Oh yeah, I mean the grass is always greener, right? FOMO. I mean, for sure. Like when I was touring with Sublime, I mean, we were doing about 4 to 5 shows a week, which isn't terrible because the set time is only 90 minutes. But I mean the different time zones of traveling, also the social aspect too. I mean, you kind of, the meet and greets, you have to be a part of those. You can't, just sit those out because there are people there that like the music and they pay money to be able to speak to the people that make it. So, I remember, yeah, like the first month I was just so like, I couldn't get enough of it. And the adrenaline rush of playing for 15,000 people and going all over the world was so cool. And then you start to get tired and you just kind of want to, you miss the solitude of being in a studio and writing. Um, and then, now it's like, God, what was I thinking? Like, get me on the plane, let's get out of LA and, let's go play for some people. So, but I think if like you could find the balance, of still performing maybe locally or writing in the studio or stuff like that, that's always cool. I think going like all in into one thing, unless, there's some people that have that personality, like they just want to do that one thing and they could do it, 60, 70 hours a week and they love it and just never get tired of it. That's cool. But yeah, for me, I definitely miss, playing and performing and, but that has its potential setbacks too. But yeah, the studio life can be exhausting. I mean,
I bet.
You get in your car, you drive, you show up to the studio, you're in this kind of dark room, like as you are with your background. And then, 12 hours later, you're back out.
Do you ever feel, okay, so I know at least for like women in the industry, like, do you ever feel like you need to like dress up because like Ariana Grande's coming and you like
Do I feel like I need to dress up?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely, because like you want to definitely dress differently depending on who's coming. A lot of the hip hop artists and rappers, like I'm definitely going to dress a little bit more differently than I would at like a scoring date if I'm conducting like a string ensemble. Yeah, I do take some, a little bit of thought into to the way I present myself, but I think, not like I care less, but
you're just like more secure. Like you're like, I'm here to slay.
Totally.
Like you're letting
that's
I'm
it.
here.
Yeah, I'm just here to make music. It doesn't matter if I have pajamas on or if I have, a suit on. But yeah, I do. I think just presentable, not necessarily with the, you don't need to have flashy wardrobe, but I think just, being put together, but whatever that means. I mean, Hollywood is so open-minded, like, you kind of anything and everything flies nowadays, especially in LA. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, you've come a long way. I mean, okay, I don't know. I've heard this in the other podcast, but you said you slept in a practice room at one point. How did you do that? Did they have AC back then, or were you just like?
Oh my God, that was a really bad summer. The end of sophomore year, like everything went wrong. Like got dumped by my girlfriend. Rent was super expensive. One of my roommates at the time, he had to go back. Or he went back home for the summer, so I couldn't afford the rent. I was too stubborn to move back home, so I had a key to and I didn't want to move back home. I mean, it was like my my mom and dad and myself living in a tiny 2-bedroom home. It wasn't for me. So I had a key to B1 because I was in the University Saxophone Quartet. I just was able to check it out over the summer. I forget who was working the key window then, but they were really cool about it. And I spent so much time like just practicing in there anyway, that I was like, I could probably make this work for like a month. So I got one of those small box fridges from Target and plugged it in.
They might still be there. There's honestly so many random fridges like at the conservatory and microwaves.
God.
So thank you for your investment.
I feel like I'm condoning. Yeah, don't do it. Yeah, that and a microwave, and then I would shower at the gym at the Pyramid. It was called Frogs. I pulled it off for like a month, which was great. I mean, but the bathrooms were always unlocked back then. Like they were never closed. So I kind of flew under the radar.
It's like they wanted you to. It's like they gave you the green light to do it.
They set it up, and that's why whenever they call for a masterclass or a guest lecture, I was like, I'm not charging anything. You guys
still paying off my rent.
Yeah, there you go. Take it off my rent bill. But yeah, but you know what? I do have to say something about that. So what came with that is like, and I didn't even really intend on it, but like inevitably you kind of forced yourself or immersed yourself into this like hardcore environment of like practicing, like really, like you're just kind of there and you're like, that's it. And I think the most growth I made musically was the summer after sophomore year going into junior year. I mean, like I was practicing all day and just transcribing solos, and just score study. And that was really, I think, good, like to really, there's no distractions, and you're really just put in that environment. I mean, Instagram wasn't even a thing back then, right? I mean, it was just, I look at like students now in colleges, and like there's so many other Netflix like streaming stuff. I mean, I don't think any of those things are bad, but I just feel like there's just all these, online dating. Um, it's like you're surrounded by
Distractions.
stimulus, and
Yeah.
just constant, constant things to kind of occupy your mind. So I do think, you know, for you guys being able to to shut that stuff off and really just give yourself, peace and quiet, and spend time with your instrument, or with, a score or something like that, I think is super beneficial.
Yeah. I know. I was reading this study, um, like performance camps and just like universities, like they consciously have bad practice rooms so that you don't get comfortable and practice more. Did you know that?
Are you serious?
Yeah, like the camp will probably be like super bad because they're just like meant for you to want to get out of there and just like put in the work. So
Wow.
thank you, Bob Cole.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Bob. Well, no, seriously, that's so crazy. That's awesome. Wow, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
when I read that, I was like, it makes sense, but also I'm hot in here. Please take
Yeah,
it
no,
easy.
it was hot.
Yeah.
And I remember like it was annoying when, people would practice with their doors open, because it was just like, you have just a ton of, I was also in B53. You just have like a ton
That's
of
my
brass
room
players.
right now.
It didn't really bother me that much, but now like looking back, it's like, that is so, I'm sorry, so stupid, because it's like, how can you really truly just focus on what you're doing, right? Like, close the door. I mean, but I do remember it gets hotter than hell in those rooms. And they had the little, no, there wasn't a fan, was there? Was there a fan?
No, I
The
think
air
they've
vent?
added AC now, but I think since you've been there was like a really bad flood. So it got like a
Yes.
little worse
So
before it
is there
got
AC
better.
now in the rooms?
Yeah, there's like little
Oh,
light switches now that like turn the AC on. So
oh,
it's
that's
not that
awesome.
bad.
We didn't have the AC. I just remember like they get really, really hot in there,
Yeah.
really warm.
So what
Sure.
would you recommend to an unsigned artist who is just beginning to build their brand and is looking to gain industry exposure and interest?
Industry exposure will come from building a strong social media engagement, kind of go down the deep dive of social media algorithms, and how you could now attach an audio asset to feed posts on Instagram and stories, and how TikTok plays a crucial role in that, because, for example, like mainstream radio was always kind of the only driving force behind really breaking an artist. Now it's like, if you have a song or a composition or whatever we want to use, whatever term we want to use to define it, if that audio asset is attached to something that goes viral on TikTok, something goes viral on TikTok, it's pretty much relevant within 8 hours around the entire globe. And that's huge.
Wow.
TikTok has more active users, I think 7 times the amount of active users than mainstream radio does at any waking moment. So that's just shows you what that reach is. So really, I mean, it sounds hokey. I mean, because I'm, in my 30s, and I think TikTok is so. I have a couple opinions on it. I'm not on it, but I do think it is incredibly important for someone who's trying to build and brand themselves as an artist, or even anyone who's building a business. There is a, artists, absolutely. I mean, get on that, and not to say like you need to use TikTok to become a TikToker and do that, but if you do build a huge audience on that platform, and you're known as an artist, that just adds a significant amount of more value to your brand, especially if you're trying to get signed, because labels now kind of their algorithmic breakdown of evaluating an artist that they potentially want to sign, like I would say about 50% of that is compiled of their social media engagement and what impact they've had. The other 50% is sort of comprised of, their musical merit, and are they unique enough to where we think they'll have longevity. Like if you have a ton of people trying to get signed to a label, and they all kind of are Justin Bieber clones or Olivia Rodrigo clones, like they're not going to sign you, because you're just like, she's already there and she already exists.
Mm.
They are going to sign you if you do already have kind of an established brand, and you've developed it and grown it, and you are kind of unique, and have your, I guess, your musical skill set, kind of the foundation developed and stuff like that. But yeah, really, like if you have a social media presence and it's strong and there's good engagement, like that really, really significantly increases your chances of getting signed to a label. And the cool thing is with social media is like it's free. Publishing consistently, publishing trending content, knowing how to use the hashtags, knowing when to post and publish, is definitely advantageous for an artist. In mainstream, covering a song or remixing a very, very popular, relevant song is great because the way the algorithm favors that specific song, it will then kind of spotlight your profile, and maybe you'll get on the explore page or the discover page. It significantly increases browser traffic. So if you decide to cover, an Olivia Rodrigo song or a Lady Gaga song or an Ariana Grande song, and that's an incredibly relevant song, by default, you're sort of in this system of like relevancy, which will just bring more eyeballs to your platform, which just helps you bring your, build your brand. That is kind of the Cliff Notes version. So what does that say? That means that there's another component that is going to, drive success of music. It's marketing and relevancy and getting eyes on you.
Good point.
Penetrating that.
Yeah, you really just got to study the industry. Good
yes.
point.
Yeah, it is a whole new thing. It's definitely not. It's definitely like not the Olympics, right? Like the fastest wins the race. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into it other than just musical merit. So yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Well,
No
thank
problem.
you so much again for joining me on Artist Banter. I'm sure we've all learned a lot and are looking forward to graduating.
Congratulations.
And that is all for Artist Banter this week. Don't forget to check out Beach News Weekly for campus news on daily49er.com, as well as other podcast content brought to you by the Daily 49er. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Daily 49er. Thank you and have a great summer.